peacock a little. The middle of your chest comes out as you breathe in, and then down into kind of subtle turtling, and in as you breathe out. And do that again, one more time. Breathe in, peacocking. And it's the tension in the middle of your chest that matters, because that's where all of us inadvertently stiffen to protect ourselves. So reinstituting the subtlety that comes like we're infants, we first learn to crawl, turns the heart into a embodied energy bellows. And then the next time you breathe in, go up and around to the right clockwise. That seems to work better energetically. And down and in as you breathe out. And then up and around counterclockwise as you breathe in, and down as you breathe out. And what's this figure 8ing about? Well, it's the cross-section of every energy field throughout the cosmos. They're all fat bagels. Taurus, as you all know. So we reinstitute the toroidal dynamics that are natural to our most subtle expression, only patiently, gently, sensitively, pleasurably, so that you're noticing this moment to moment, feeling this moment as you figure 8 with the middle of your chest, responding to this moment to moment, and then enjoying this moment to moment. And you'll notice that as you do, something supple and subtle can happen, depends on how much sensitivity you bring to this. But the patient, gentle, sensitive, pleasurable moving the middle of your chest as energy bellows, it'll be something you do, allow to radiate all through you until eventually you may get to the point you can welcome these moves, and even notice you welcome being welcomed into them, like you welcome breathing's welcome. And so every meditative path that becomes reflexive recurs here for us, so that you reconnect with you as some one in 3 senses. One beyond number divine, one is context of all context cosmos, and one is utterly unique, valuable messenger for bringing heaven to this earth, and so are we all. And as this becomes an embodied experience, you can more readily lift this into mental, spiritual expression, and you notice all the great truths have some reflexive construction to them. As above, so below. Giving is receiving. Whatever goes around comes around. I am that I am. So that's a little taste, and I'll put in the chat a link to a recent Facebook Live if you want a little 10-minute fun refresher ever. And then I also have a open source playlist on YouTube that I'll link. Thanks for your forbearance. What a gift to be here. Thank you, Raymond.
Thanks, Artie.
You, Artie. Wow. Good. So welcome, everybody. This is the third and final part 2. I hope everybody's had a chance to watch the part 1 of our discussion, which was very surprisingly just a super positive call. We took very little time to tell anybody about it, and 11:11 on a Thursday Pacific time, and we just had a really great conversation. A lot of positive energy show up, and we're talking about embodying vulnerable transparency with some standard protocols that are both digital protocols that run on distributed ledger technology and on holochain. And we're talking about human interactional protocols, so technology that's about human interaction. What are the technologies that allow human interactions to be the most coherent, the most vulnerably transparent, the most deeply connective in our experience? And I think with the human technology and the digital technology flowing in to bring transparency to what's happening, I think we have a really great way to transform our socioeconomic system, really, like on a global scale, like through something through sticking to simple natural law concepts like that. I think is where we can find a lot of answers. And so so I've written a bunch about that over the years and put up some websites about that, and talked about some of the technical specs, mostly talked about the technical specs, right? And then finally, this last article I put out this year after an experience called K-Pasana, which I did on Maui, which is kind of like a Vipassana, if anyone's familiar. But it's a little more relaxed, it's only 5 or 6 days, 5 or 6 hours of meditation per day. And we do some yoga and some other movement and stuff in there. After 11 days of noble silence there at K-Pasana, I actually saw some clear patterns, some clear fundamental patterns in all of the things I've been talking about. And I wrote an article about that called A Digital Protocol for Scaling Loving Kindness. And I published that, and that kicked off some new momentum. And Joel Sereno came wandering into the field. And it's been just a super blessing to have Joel. It's really brought this concept to a whole new level of sharing, to where we're ready to share in a whole new way. And so this is that. This is our first sharing of parts of that, and in the form of this idea about a Facilitators Guild. And with that, I'll pass it off to Joel a little bit to introduce himself and maybe talk a little bit more about the Facilitators Guild. You're not muted, but I'm not hearing you. Interesting.
All right, that should be much better.
There we go.
There he is.
Thanks, Ray. Feel free to keep me on task and on time. Thanks for that really, really amazing kind of opening about why we're all here, and a little bit about how I got here. In that same respect is embodying vulnerable transparency and finding a way to relate it to all of the conversations, to all of the integrations, to all of the exchanges that are going on in the subtle ways that seem to have been an opportunity for a lot of other people to build opportunity for a few. And in that sense, we lost the coolness to be naked. We lost the coolness to be raw and open with each other and vulnerable and supportive of whatever it is that's coming up. And it is important in an organization or a community or a business to have metrics and to meet those metrics as often as possible, so that the embodied vision is a reality. But you know, lots of people decide to stop doing stuff all the time. And when that happens, are there wounds, are there healings, are there scars, are there missed opportunities that the world, of course, is now maybe not going to benefit from, that could be picked up and moved on just by holding space. And that starts vulnerable, which isn't really in groups or business organizations or governments at the level that we're talking about here at Protocol.Love, where when a government issues an authoritative message to its people that it's really interested in changing currency and basing it on loving kindness, then I think we'll be really close. But until then, here we are. And my relation to part of the techniques, you know, in terms of understanding currencies and technologies and protocols and how to weave those things in support of another group of people that's going to get together, doesn't need to know anything about technology, but really wants to get some magic done. And how these different types of technical tools have been built as a limitation and haven't really provided a capacity for transparency in ways that allow us to continue to grow these collectives in a much easier way. Some examples in this group alone are when we want to build a new eco-village, or we want to build a new small community in the middle of a city, or we want to build a co-housing opportunity for people that don't have a house and couldn't really articulate a certain type of value in society to offer them the benefit of living in an environment that's safe and away from possible disaster outside, and providing a sense of security so they can participate in the local economy and the exchange of being in a community. And when I met Ray a few months ago on this topic of this paper that he had written, it was something certainly that I was looking for, like a lot of you are, is how to weave a common language, common transparent approach to getting together as a collective and sitting in council like we do in the other parts of our life. How do we integrate that into these more economic parts of our life? And mostly in a way to answer, how do all of these projects get funding, is a very common question that a lot of us have. And it is a process. There's not a magic button for creating currency. And yet we're also sitting in a country, some of us, most of us, are sitting in a country that is represented by an economic system that does just that. They're able at will to define what value is and distribute that to the commons. And so these concepts of holochain and these technologies that are coming up to date with where we are as humans, remembering who we are and remembering our roots and listening to our elders about how simple these protocols in life are that are in tune with natural law and universal law. If we're going to continue to build technology, the least we could do is minimize the impact that we're having, and whether that's energy or creating more scarcity or building silos inadvertently by holding on to patterns that are not vulnerably transparent that we practice in other parts of our life. So I was really drawn to how practical it was, essentially, is what I'm saying. And the practical part is none of it really works without embodying where we are, I think, as humanity and as an energy. Our earth is transforming. The water, so to say, is flowing and permeating in new ways. And the rising consciousness is being supported by a really beautiful tapestry being woven by a lot of our grandmothers, a lot of our mothers, a lot of our sisters and aunts, and a lot of our children. And it's really important that there's a voice for the value that looks different than the world has been set up and doesn't have quite the accommodation of the flow to put it where it really needs to be, or where it really is in reality. So the Protocol Facilitators Guild represents that proposal, is for us to find balanced human beings who have and are weaving life together. You know, whether it's building a mini city or an eco-village, and a number of businesses that support that eco-village, which, you know, the intentional movement has been doing for years, and sovereign nations and tribes have been doing for even longer. And the ability to be on a piece of land and operate in autonomy and be in harmony with nature and to share and to evolve and to grow and to be here now has gotten a lot more complicated, because sometimes we have to check out and go earn some of that fiat dollar to pay for whatever existence that we're participating in, which at the Protocol.Love we call Game A. Game A, if we keep playing it, the energy is going to keep going there. So I really would like to see a lot of Game A energy come into Game B, and that's where we come in. Because we are the facilitators and the embodiments of how life works on Earth. And in that, if we have just a few people that are really interested in writing some code and supporting interface applications that are really just so that we can better communicate and harmonize these projects that we're all working on, the extreme levels of value that are being created all over the world, whether it's a new energy grid in the jungles of Africa, or a new well system in the middle of India, or a completely new open source medical system that's completely private and safe, secure, but pretty much any doctor can get anything they need to know about you in an instant if it's helpful and useful, and of course you're agreeing to it. And these aren't systems built by companies. These are systems built by us, you know, people that really want to see this in the commons. And so as weavers, if we're able to learn these common languages and these common protocols and things that are in line with universal law, and now we have some of the tools that we can start weaving into these already participating actions of new things forming, reforming, things falling away and needing something to fill its space. If we were able to operate in this vulnerable, transparent way and implement these proposed protocols, it really allows us to have everything we need in the holographic reality that we're living in on Earth, which is also partly socioeconomic. And the last couple of calls, I think we've kind of had a lot of really cool questions and conversations, and I'm still new to this, just like you all are. And I believe Ray is also still new to this, although he's been doing it for a while. but we are also surrounded by each other, and we've all been doing this for a long time. And we all remember this. That's why we're here, and this is sacred economics, and this is the flow of abundance and prosperity on the behalf of everyone and everything. And this is a short-term job. We're not going to be here forever. And the important part is, but someone is going to be. So if these systems are alive and breathing and thriving in the next 7 generations, and all of the dreams are just manifesting in beautiful harmony and the harmonic of love and peace, then all right, so a little bit of techniques, a little bit of work in this lifetime is worth it. And I feel a lot of us facilitators have been looking for some sort of connective tissue that allows these eco villages, allow these startups, allow these investors, allow these human beings embodied with these souls wanting to give service in not just the small ways, in some of the bigger paramount ways that are empowering others to serve and to facilitate. And a lot of people call that meta. I'm thinking about the meta opportunity, the metadata, looking at the big picture, so to say. And that's what the facilitation is about with the guild. It's not about the protocol. The protocol is just a tool that makes it very easy and relative and subjective and objective at the same time by removing all of those things and saying loving kindness is pretty equal. Vulnerable transparency is pretty natural in the spring. So let's go to work in that way. Let's go talk about these things in this way. Let's form in these ways. And let's build systems in these ways, and let's share in these ways. So that's all the high level stuff. And I kind of wanted to do that for a reason, because I'm wondering if the group, I think we have got about 20 people on, would be interested in this session to peek behind a little bit of some of the process that, let's say, an ecosystem has already gone through, because a lot of Protocol.Love is about facilitating ecosystems, not just a village. When we build a village, we realize it's actually an ecosystem. There's 4, 5, 10 businesses sprouting up. There's an interconnection to other communities that create logistics opportunities and resource and trade and all sorts of things, just like we see in every other economy. So I'd love to put Ray on the spot to see if he would be able to maybe walk us through a real world example and kind of make it relative.
Good.
Oh, it looks like we just lost Joel, but yeah, sure. So one of the cool things here is I'm on the ground in intentional community, and we're actually modeling these protocols and systems here on the ground. And so that's a great opportunity. I'm here with my family. We're here, really doing it. I have my 3 daughters, and I have them half the year, and so we're here in community, and magic is happening in this community, and magic is happening as we. As the founders here are very interested, because they understand the critical nature of being able to expand to create the efficiencies of scale necessary to compete with the existing, or the legacy paradigm, I guess we should say, right? Game A. People aren't, the proposal here that is not for people to go back to living off grid or living off the land, right? And it's certainly, it will support those who are feeling called for that. But in order to have a mass transition of culture, I don't think that's the answer that's going to ring true for a vast majority of Americans and first world countries, right? So we've got to give them some kind of scalable ecosystem within which they can live, work in a whole new way that doesn't cause them to go back to this more old way of living, because people are used to their technology. They're used to access to goods and services. So the scalability is the trick. So one eco community at a time, one intentional community at a time, one startup business at a time that's doing things a different way. We find that the people that are attracted to these kind of conversations, whether it be the technical level of holochain or whether it be the more interpersonal human interactional level of Protocol.Love, we find that we're consistently attracting people who are thinking on a higher conscious level. When I say consciousness, that's not some woo-woo term for me, right? That's a very grounded term. Consciousness is the ability, in my view, for a being to understand the patterns it's involved in. And a higher conscious being is simply able to understand greater complexity in those patterns. So as we literally raise consciousness on the planet, we are able to see more complexity in the patterns. We're able to see the ways that every single choice we make affects the whole. Not only all humans on the planet, not only all life on the planet, but everything in the universe is actually affected when we carry this out. And the realization and the remembering of that on a regular basis, I think, is a powerful, powerful concept. And that's what vulnerable transparency allows to happen. So as one community establishes their economic means, they've identified the currencies, the values that are important to them as a community. They've identified the values, and they're able to easily create a currency on a distributed ledger technology to see the flow of that currency through the ecosystem. Currency, see the current in the flow of exchange that's happening within the ecosystem. As one community can identify the values and to see the flows that they're involved in with those, and other communities can do the same, we'll start identifying the ways that currencies, we're actually identifying the same values and creating the same kind of currencies. At that point, we can do a currency merger, which from a technical perspective is pretty easy to do. Right? And as more and more communities identify some shared values and shared currencies, we can expand those currencies. And so they grow organically. And we can look for, using all the kind of analytics tools. I mean, we have brilliant accountants and number crunchers who are out there crunching these numbers on US dollars and various currencies based on that. US dollar only represents a small fraction of the actual value exchange that's happening in the world. It is a very small set of data. And so, and it's, of course, it's all part of the game A goal to acquire more wealth and power. That's the game that's being played on this planet. And so if we want to change that game, we have to have more metrics. We have to have more types of ledgers of different types of value exchanges that are happening. Who's tracking the value exchange of the parents raising the children? Who's tracking the value exchange of a warm greeting? And the value exchange from those who would take their time to sit with us when we're in distress. Like all of these types of values, whatever it may be. Maybe you value bananas, okay? Whatever it may be, a currency can be created around that value, and we can look for exchanges in the ecosystem and scale those effectively and efficiently to create an economy that works for everybody and doesn't require us to have to go back to the dark ages. Joel, I hope that spoke to what the point you wanted me to.
Yeah, my computer died. Earlier, my phone died.
That's perfect timing.
Yeah, I did see a question
that disappeared. So,
yeah, I did see a question while you're talking about, because you covered a little bit about distributed ledger technology, which that's where the technical comes in. Is what changes here about what we've already been doing, and building these things, as you've talked about, really clearly. Like we're getting to this meta level where we're seeing a larger picture and be able to put greater levels of complexity together. How related is the distributed ledger to that greater level of complexity that allows us to actually do this, to give us the ability to create a currency, not out of thin air, but because that currency has a value that is identified by anybody and anyone and can be measured by those metrics. So how does the distributed ledger technology work in that sense? Without getting too technical, in real world.
Oh, is that for me? One type of distributed ledger technology that we're all familiar with is blockchain, where most of us have had some experience with that. And there's scalability issues with blockchain. Many of us may have realized that by now. If we were to even try to have Bitcoin handle the number of economic transactions, just the number of online credit card transactions that happen, we would literally have to design a system using Nakamoto consensus that would burn the entire planet now, to generate that much electricity. So these systems aren't scalable. It's a great idea. It opened people's eyes to a lot of potentials. But the interesting thing about that whole thing is at the same time the Nakamoto consensus paper was coming out, this is the Bitcoin paper that started Bitcoin, published by somebody by the pen name Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody knows who that actually is. Another interesting point in that. About the same time, the Holochain guys were really formulating the idea for a distributed ledger technology that did use monotonic hash tables, which is similar to what Bitcoin does, but it uses BitTorrent technology as the way to distribute the ledger. And if anybody knows, BitTorrent technology is a technology where kids have been able to download all the movies and the books and the software for free off the internet all this time, and still to this day can still do that. If the powers that be that would like to protect their copyrighted material had the capability to shut that down, we know they would have. So this has created what we call an unenclosable carrier. An unenclosable carrier allows the transactions, the values we see to flow through our network in a way that we can trust is the truth, is the true value. And that's what BitTorrent technology and Holochain allow us to do. So the distributed ledger technology is where the data can be, so important data that we need to share, our vulnerable, transparent, operational data, can be stored across the planet on thousands and hundreds of thousands of nodes, depending on how much that data is requested, all around the planet, so that that data cannot be controlled or manipulated by anybody else. And so that hopefully answers that question. And I just, want to remind us all at this point that with the half hour we have left, we're really in an open flow kind of conversation. So any comments or questions you have, we'd love to have you speak up at this time.
Is this group going to do some sort of thing? Does the group facilitators, I want to practice this thing.
Yeah.
That's
Hi,
all I have to
Shannon.
say.
Yeah. Oh, great. That's great. Like let's give this some focus. The proposal on the table is that we could form anybody who's interested in teaching technology to both human interactional and the digital layer of technology to organizations, specifically in the startup phase right now. If you'd want to be a person who would want to help teach these principles, these game V principles, creating the omni-win, anti-rival risk kind of business design from the ground up, like I'm doing here at Arcadia right now. If that's something that interests you, we want you. We'd love to potentially create what we're calling the Facilitators Guild, which would be a group of us that are committed to that goal, something like it. We're going to determine exactly what that goal is together, in fact, to come together and look for some standard ways of providing that kind of consultation to the world. And so one of the things we might do is actually do a collective foundational document, which is a founding document recommended by Protocol.Love. If you want to operate with vulnerable transparency, we would actually convene a group of us, probably no more than 8. We're trying to limit it because just in terms of human interactional technology, many experts have found over the years, including us, have validated that, the smaller group size is far more effective. And but this is not a prestige thing, right? I just want to remind anybody that it's not a prestige thing to be on the collective foundational document team, but we are looking, there's a few more spots open if anybody here is interested in that part. And if you're just looking to possibly become what we would call a facilitator and go do consulting for organizations around Protocol.Love and vulnerable transparency, yes, please be heard at this time and let us know that you're interested, because we're going to be looking to build a team around that.
Create a lot of currencies together.
I am interested.
Yay, Shannon.
On our last conversation, you had brought that up as well, and the interest, and there was the commitment of 8 hours. What is that 8 hours in a time framework? Yes. 8 hours a week, 8 hours a month, 8 hours total. What's the 8 hours?
Oh, great. Thanks, Jonah. Yeah, we're looking, the commitment, if you're interested in being part of a collective foundational document team to form the collective that we might call the Facilitators Guild, is anytime we recommend the collective foundational document process, we recommend people be available for 8 hours, be committed to 8 hours with the entire team. So that means if somebody gets sick or just can't make it for any reason, we're gonna reschedule, and we're gonna align so that we're all fully present for every minute of the creation of that document. And so if you're interested in that kind of commitment, it's kind of a paper pushing job, but if you're interested in that kind of commitment, and you're also interested in meta structuring the organizational capacities of the Facilitators Guild, then please let us know. And then for anybody who can't make that kind of commitment or doesn't want to, you're going to be welcome to join and watch every minute of it as well, anytime you can make it. So that will be fully open. We'll record the sessions, and we will also have the collective foundational document as our output, which you're all going to be welcome to read. And of course, one of the important things that is part of every collective foundational document is, you know, who is the initial core council that's operating the collective, and how do we bring other people into that? And so there's an opportunity for everybody to join into that process the moment it's done.
Yeah, and after these warm-up calls and we get to that point of scheduling that, like Raymond was saying, it'll be really, to me it'll sound great just to open it all up at the end as like, look, we just all did a training together. If there were 20 or 30 of us, at least we're able to participate at various levels of witnessing, and we're able to share the group itself that's going through the process in a cohesive way through video or maybe another one or two of these. That could serve as a really good foundational training of facilitation of, okay, I've got enough fundamentals now to start weaving what is Protocol.Love, really getting into the website a little bit more and pulling out content that's relative until you guys hurry up and update it and make it a little more usable for us in that way. And really start weaving this without, there's no reason to wait at this point. Is kind of what I want to say is there's no formal certification yet. There maybe through creating this document together, we agree that it would be good to have a hash that says someone has gone through the foundational training for how to facilitate this, because there are a lot of pieces to it. But yeah, I think it'll be nice and open and participative, and looking forward to witnessing it myself.
Yeah, and it sure would be amazing if we had people who have the kind of, especially I think it could be critical to have people with experience with corporate consulting in Game A. So if you're used to going into boardrooms and talking to people about and consulting with their business, that's an invaluable experience that you could bring to this, because by putting just a little bit different spin on how we talk about these things, we can transform the whole operations of an entire organization.
Hi, my name's Denise Aurora. Humphrey invited me, and I also know Mark Wagner. And I really appreciate the protocol. I watched the other video that said you must watch before you go into this one. And I saw the different like cohort and the currencies and the assets and the equity. And I'm very much into this idea. I've been actually thinking about it and feeling into it for a while myself, and kind of on the edges of blockchain and distributed ledger and holochain. And I worked in technology in asset exchange for Internet of Things, but it was not transparent. And I'm really into transparency. And I've also been in group situations where people are hiding, and then it makes it very uncomfortable. And I'm one of those people that I can see everything, and then I like to point it out, and people don't like it. So I'm just like, I want to have this more like this, like everything out on the table, so we can know what energy is really being exchanged. Also, I have a lot to offer. People tend to take it for granted. So there's a lot of stuff that I have to offer that doesn't necessarily get kudos or stars, and then I'm sitting there like, oh, I just spent 40 hours on this and I have no credit, you know?
Yeah.
So I would like, and I see that's happening to a lot of people, and there's different kinds of credits. And that's what's so exciting about blockchain, is that it is bringing up the idea of different types of value systems, like the single currency of dollars, this promissory note. It's just one value of exchange, and we've lost all the different value types of exchanges. And for so long, I was saying to people, yeah, this energy exchange that we're having, and they're like, huh? They didn't get it. And I think now's the time that we can really bring this to the culture, and making protocols and standards and bodies and councils are really key for working in where we're going to the futures of economics and technologies. So I could be interested on being on the council or the Protocol.Love experience. I do a lot of paper pushing and a lot of juggling. I'm involved in a lot of things, but I would at least like to have a conversation. And I also started a group that Mark goes to, and there might be some people that might be the perfect people. Like I would imagine you kind of want to have the perfect 8. Like I would, if I were you guys, I'd be choosy, have a few women, a few men, and I don't know, probably just going to happen surgically.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up, Denise. I can tell already. We'd love to have you. We're looking for definitely this Facilitators Guild. I mean, if anything, we'd love it to be heavily feminine balanced, because we've got the technology piece coming out of the CoGov team, right? We're going to be working on the technology. We're going to be building the protocols on Holochain. We're going to be stewarding Protocol.Love. We're going to be building technical interfaces. The Facilitators Guild is very much that feminine side that's going to be actually doing the sensing and with the people in the groups. And when we talk about a startup, there's kind of two roles. There's the masculine and the feminine. They're both necessary there. But when we talk about a startup, usually it's a very masculine process of talking about money and planning and structures and all these things. And the feminine piece is completely missing from that conversation. That's what we're going to be changing here, right? So
Thank you. I really, really, really appreciate this. As a female that has been in male worlds for so long, this is really key, and so many heard voices. This is really, really key, and I really appreciate that your minds are so clear on this, because I just saw the demonstration and I was like, yay, thank you. This is what we're talking about, and this is what's needed, rather than everyone starting, I've got my ICO. Like, no, the protocol, the standards, this is what's normal in technology, and like how we go about it and facilitating it so that groups can come in and make it happen and get excited about it and understand what it means fully.
Not only that, he has an energy reader. Yeah, he lets me have his ear. I would tell him what an old soul you are, how immensely gifted as well. So
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Denise. Yeah, just to say a little more on that is, so we're going to go in. Generally, the idea would be to go in as consultants at startup time. So we do have both the business analytics side, right? Because we're going to be talking about currencies and protocols and metrics and all this stuff. But it's really about sensing the energies in the group. We're looking for the subtle power dynamics that are happening. We're looking to make sure that all voices are heard, and that at the establishment of the collective, we've established ways of communication and stewarding these assets where all voices continue to be heard. And we will all see, if we do this practice, we'll see instances where like benevolent dictatorships are appropriate. Like it's just happening that way. Because one of the things we go in, the recommendation is to look what's already happening within the group that has brought them to this point, and just write that down, right? Write down how they're making decisions together already, just informally. Because the first thing we can do is iterate. Like the second there's a new neat form of decision-making necessary, we can iterate that, because we've created a process through which we can collectively decide to iterate that, which is the magic. Right? So there's going to be this masculine side of the analytics and metrics, but it's really, we need a strong feminine consultation at the onset of the start of these organizations, and we're kind of going to look to be potentially their HR department. So when there's conflict, when there's incoherence happening, when there's anything that needs some fine tuning, we'll be there to support those human interactional technologies with our human interactional technologies. And there's so many gifted people, empathic, feminine sensing types that are needed to go in there and really do that work, and then balance it with, well, we are in business here. We do have metrics and we have goals and we have missions and all that to accomplish, and just have that balance there as well. But primarily really bringing that nurturing stewardship to the human in relationships within the organizations. So instead of using technology to build the systems, we're using the technology to enhance the relationships that build the systems. Yeah, I see a hand up. Go for it.
Awesome. Any questions from anybody out there?
I saw a hand up from Enrico.
Yeah. Enrico.
Yes. First of all, I want to let you guys know I'm very honored for this opportunity. I have been invited here. It was Brother Humphrey who sent along this invitation, and I extended it to someone who was on also, Kelly Gitter, who's here, most amazing person. I would like to offer my services. I will be happy to forward bio and May type of information onto you guys, and I defer completely to your judgment as to whether you would consider that I would be an appropriate addition to your team. understand a fair amount of what you have proposed and promoted with a lot of relevant background and foreground trajectory. I would just welcome and invite you and encourage you to continue, even perhaps to consider extending this introductory phase of calls, because I think that there's a greater or a greater source that would even come from this meeting in the way that this meeting is being handled so far, the energy and the consciousness as coalescing here, that if you were to extend even this process a little bit more with another day or two of meetings, you'd probably be inundated with yet more creativity, more integrity, more enlightenment of the beings who would be called to participate. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very yes.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. That's definitely worth considering. Yeah, to do another week of these or something, perhaps.
Yeah, I can feel that. And thank you. It's being open to that possibility. And we are working on helping each other ground into that reality of that higher source that we are connected to, and weaving and having fun doing, but also stewarding.
And Brooke Shield, do you want to say something? You chimed in on chat.
Yeah, hi, Brooke Shield. You're muted right now. I can unmute you. There you go.
Hi,
Hi.
hi everyone. I'm here because Brother Humphrey, he invited me, and then I'm so happy and glad to see Dr. Nelson. He's a friend of mine also. I'm so happy that Brother Humphrey invited me to open this kind of group. Here, I am a Filipina here in the Philippines. You know how badly here the government, everybody are giving more problems to the government, but we don't need to say for that in my government. So as a small group here in the Philippines, I am organizing people like tribal people. So I'm so glad to find something that can really help to my group, like this, and then sharing ideas, sharing like it's so really it's so really fun. I'm so glad. I am so very sorry for being because I my because of language of differences of the languages. But as you said last conversation, we using a love language. So I think in my simple way to communicate to you guys will can I help, or then you can help to my group here in the Philippines, a small group or a small community like tribal group here in the Philippines. That's all. Thank you.
Wow. We understand you perfectly, Brooke Shield, and we're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
Awesome.
you.
Samavesha, I see a hand up.
Greetings.
Hi.
I see some old friends that have popped in later on. Hi, Susan. And I also honor our Indigenous elders here. So in the last call, I was guided to mention that our ancient merchant priesthood really practiced all of the principles, all of the core values, all of the noble virtues that Protocol.Love is exemplifying in its platform. And today I feel called to bring in the ancient archetype and the lineage of the corporate shamanism. So what's really going to deepen the roots of this wisdom platform is grounding its association with what we would call the ancient traditions of golden civilizations, the success that we've had stewarding these levels of embodied, communicative, and integrative principles, and allowing the soul within the group and the soul within each and every one of us to remember that we know this design in our heart of hearts, that we know these codes of interactive optimization in the blueprint of our organic intelligence. And so what I offer from my skills and talents as a medicine woman is the framework of the initiations, the framework of the rites of passage, and that this is equally as valuable curriculum before we send in, the guild facilitators to play their ambassador or emissary roles. And so the intimate retreats that we would have in the wild and allowing all of these distinctions to land literally in every cell and every atom and every molecule of our body with the primal energies of the planet, because I speak here for Gaia, and she has a stake in the game, and she would love all of her initiated ones to come back home to the original template for sacred economics, which is the Gaian currency of all life. And so when we have these deepenings, as Enrico mentioned, we're going to see a lot of different technologies kind of occupy, in my heart's perspective, different council seats. And I just consider it the great family reunion. So I'm absolutely in, and would love to bring in any other complementary resource materials, such as Dr. Rhiannon Eisler's statistics that she's been presenting to Congress and the United Nations, and actually diplomatic leaders from all over the planet, that we have the proof that these principles are already viable in large scale, what she calls cultural transformation. So it's like taking your message and then backing it up with just a gazillion, as Desmond Tutu said, confirmations that these parameters not only are ethical, they're also conducive to exponential forms of wealth. So I hope that translate. Ray, feel free to riff on anything I said and speak it more from a left brain, but here's your right brain transmission from the goddess.
Yay. Thank you for that transmission. And yeah, let's get together and get juicy in amazing places on the planet and brainstorm how to bring this to the world. Let's do that. I saw another hand up. Rob.
What's up, fam? This is great. I love you all.
Yeah,
I
Rob.
feel very inspired by this work, because I see this having a place in every eco village on the planet, in every household, in every community, every nation, and every organization within those nations. That only happens if we are all in this with our hearts. The transition that you made, Raymond, is really inspiring to me in the naming of this protocol as Protocol.Love, because it signifies that we're taking our minds out of it. And don't get me wrong, minds are great. We can't build all the technical systems unless we have really dope minds. But if we want to really tap into the soul of humanity and feel each other and really feel what is needed and what is desired, we got to step into the heart space. And I feel honored to receive these codes that are being brought forward, and also called to bring my own codes forward in terms of forming right relations with one another, with ourselves, with nature, and how to do that in a good way. And I'll take it back to the way that the indigenous do things. They have a very simple method. They have the elders that guide them in their way. So it's important to me for elder voices to be heard, and we have a few on this call already, so that feels good to me. They also honor the divine feminine, the women have roles of leadership in the tribe, not just the men. That's important to me. The third is acknowledging the children, making sure that what they are asking for in this new paradigm is being brought forth through this protocol. And the last thing I'll bring forward is that there is a role that they have for the two spirits and the edge walkers, the realm benders, the people that don't necessarily have a place in modern society, but have a very firm role in indigenous cultures in keeping the faith and maintaining culture and really observing how we can keep our reality based on what is actually true and not just what someone came up with in their minds or what someone believes to be true, what is actually possible, what is actually true. And everything that's been said so far is entirely within the realm of possibility if we're able to get everyone on board. So I'm excited to start getting people on board and enrolling them in this process because I feel completely enrolled and ready to go. Everything that has been said so far resonates deeply with my soul. So thank you all. Aho mitakoyasin.
Thank you, Rob. And speak, to speak to the two spirits, these are the unicorns that we're looking for facilitators, right? Because this is a empathic sensing thing that you need to do. And if you can also get into the metrics and the digitals and the accountings and all the systems, if you can do both of those things, we definitely, you are born to be a Protocol.Love facilitator. So we have purple unicorns joining the call. Yay!
Thank you. Wonderful.
That's great. What's the purple unicorn's name, Denise?
This is Meta.
Meta?
Meta.
Meta.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I've got Uni and Meta, and they were a gift to me of the universe, like right when coronavirus hit. So very
Right.
connected to unicorns right now.
Yay.
It's my mascot, the purple unicorn mascot.
Maybe that should be the mascot for the Facilitators Guild. Maybe we just found that right here. Mark,
You should see the other one. I'll
Yeah,
just bring
my
the other
notes.
one in. So, I mean, it's pretty dazzling.
And in the meantime, Mark, did you have a question or comment?
Well, just that this group resonates more and more all the time. I would love to offer. I have a lot of that experience with the transmuting the Game A groups at scale. Working with such lumbering machines as Ford Motor Company and getting them to apply a tensegrity wheel to their engineering process so that they could design electric vehicles much faster, much better, more integrated. So I've had the opportunities to help with large complex systems, but I've always approached it more from the deep nature connection. The patterns are already there. It's just becoming aware of them, and I love how Scepter started, this idea of, following these deep patterns of nature. And I come at it from a deep friendship with an amazing being, John Young, who was mentored by Tom Brown Jr., who was mentored by grandfather Stalking Wolf, who got his name by being able to walk into a den of wolves that were sleeping and touch each one without waking them. That invisibility of spirit that is so in tune with the natural flow of the environment. And that's why I went into permaculture also, because it's a deep nature expression in every sector of society, right? It's not just growing things, it's social permaculture, financial permaculture, the health and healing of the designs in regenerative designs are all based on nature. And yeah, I love the use of also non-duality and bringing that as a kind of a universal observer and pulling with the language that goes in that direction. So expanding the language that moves into that more universal truth and universal consciousness. So I'd love to participate as much as possible in helping these facilitators to get a real simple approach, because it doesn't have to be complex. That's what you're trying to cut through, the mental machinery, so to speak. And I found aesthetics is a wonderful way of cutting through that mental machinery. So if your questions to a corporate transition target is a beautiful, simple question, that sometimes can really facilitate that portal of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Love to help with that, all of that, including the conscious linguistics.
Yes. To obviously a huge part of what we're focused on is that universal languaging, and how to see that flow of what the language of how we're writing things down together and participating in the languages, and how important it is to the contracts that we have entered in or will enter in. And yeah, thank you.
Amazing. So I just want to say that based on the quality of the conversation and the quality of the people, and so many names I know and faces I know and others I don't, and I'm just, we must be doing something right? We must have some kind of conversation that's resonating. Thank you all, for bringing your presence. We did schedule this call for an hour, and we could wrap it up. And really the thing is, get in touch with Joel or I, if you want to continue this conversation about being part of the team. And if there's anyone that just has more they need to talk about, I'm open. What do you think, Joel?
Yeah, I'm feeling very open right now. I can really sense into some of the gravity and the gravitas of what's came forth, not just this session, but previously. And, I know also I can resonate with that, Ray, with you, because that's what we've been doing. This is what we've been doing, is really doing our best to be these little stewards, to find out who all of these beautiful, amazing, powerful human beings are. And many of them are our elders, and many of them are our sisters, and many of them are our brothers. And so I feel really open, especially since this is the second time that I heard today that if maybe we would extend this a little bit longer, there's some possibilities that from a council perspective, which is not just paper pushing, but is paper pushing. So I'm open to that too, especially if over the next couple of days, if everybody wants to get in touch with us on the Facebook group and just start a conversation, we can schedule another one of these informally or formally, and just leave it very open to what you guys think.
Yeah.
Uncle Robert, did you want to say something?
Well, I just like to say, nice to meet you all, to see this gathering and understanding coming together. I always carry a feather with me because it's a symbol of truth amongst my people. We talk, I don't want to get too into spirituality, because that's everybody's belief is, where I look at it from a native perspective is we've seen prophecies come full circle. I've had the opportunity to speak with Ray and Joel and other people in other aspects, like the human movement of this whole thing. I'm so thankful that collectively we can find a better way to live for all of humanity together, because that's a part of the prophecies that us natives have been living with. All of this design, people call it paradigm shift or however you want to. We've entered into a new age, and there is an age in the prophecies of our people that speak about their troubled times coming and the things that we are experiencing right now. But the bottom line is, beyond the trials and the troubles we have the opportunity to build, like a phoenix, come together and build something more viable, more real, based on heart, on love. That's the bottom line. If you have a good heart and a good love, your spirit will shine. Just like this white feather here, that's what we use. This is a symbol of our truth. When we stand before the Creator, we hold these things very high as Native people. We don't play with our spirituality or our lives. We've been blessed through all our trials to be able to maintain these spiritual standings beyond our hardships, beyond everything. So I just like to say, obviously, if we can collectively move together, utilize the technologies, and come up with a better way of living for everybody, that's one of my dreams. Is a bunch of land, and I'm putting some of my land up for an eco community. Anybody that wants to come and I'm just start a hemp farm, put the resources of my hemp production, make hemp oils, salves, whatever, through the economy, if it's barter or sell, whatever, and I'm going to take advantage of the opportunities now to make some money off the prevailing system to put back into my eco community and this Protocol.Love movement, because that's what's necessary. It's time the people of the world come together and form a better way of life, where if you live in love, we can overcome war, even we can overcome poverty, we can overcome everything. We could collectively, through interneting, nationally and worldwide, help one another, because our people have suffered enough. Not as a Native person, I know suffer, and I'm not trying to look for sympathy. All I'm saying is that it's unnecessary for humanity to treat people bad. I've lived it all my life. I've seen it. I'm a product of it. But the bottom line is, I've been given this faith, spiritual faith, to keep me going, and it saw me through, and the prophecies are here, and you are all a product of that. Your hearts, your minds. It's like when Standing Rock happened. We set up an ancient fire, and it woke the world up, because it's if it's in your spirit, it's there, and you can't deny it. It will draw you like a moth to the flame. If your spirit is pure, that's the kind of society and group I want to see come together. Not somebody based on selfishness or hate or self-centered piety or whatever, because I don't like to work in that way. I like to, put the rubber to the meets the road, so to speak, type person. That's how I am. All that other stuff is just water under the bridge. But thank you for the opportunity to speak and share my ideologies, because I, like Joel and Ray, we know there's need for change. We know that for a fact, and I'm sure you all do. Sense living where you're from, where you live, or whatever you're facing. I'd just like to say that much. And for the facilitator and all that sort of thing, I am into the feminine because I have my wife, and my wife is my number one help. She guides me on everything. We pray together. We share everything. Decisions are not patriarchy. But I might add that. So thank you. More than willing to help in any opportunity, and my land is there, and I'm going to be putting it up, for communities. So you'll probably be hearing about it down the road. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, beautiful ecosystem. I've had the pleasure to experience the download from Uncle Robert on the initial dream that he carries and his eco village, and how relative it is to having these protocols in place so that we can restore sovereignty to the flow of currency in all corners of our country and the world. And so, yeah, super inspiring stuff happening there as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Uncle Robert, thank you so much for your words. I was, got the honor of being with Uncle Robert. They're at Sacred Stone Camp at Standing Rock in October 2016, where he was the steward of that sacred fire for around the clock. There wasn't a time you came to that sacred fire where Uncle Robert wasn't there tending it, and he was there right up till the very end when the bulldozers came and destroyed everything we had built over months and months of community coming together to build a village there at Sacred Stone Camp. And Uncle Robert was there right till that end, where he was able to even get some of the coals from that sacred fire to bring away, to spread around the world. And I like to think about the work we're doing here as a virtual spreading of those coals from the sacred fire from Standing Rock.
I shared just one more thing.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm honored to try to be a part of this, and I'm glad that there are the transparency you're talking about is definitely invaluable to the whole organization, because I just wanted to share just some of the things that we didn't have it that way at this pipeline fight. I wish it was a lot more transparent because of a lot of other, allegations and things that transpired. But the bottom line, I saw the problems that are associated with, organizational skills, people lacking the ability to work together, or however that whole thing comes to being. Like Ray was talking about, it was my job to be facilitator. I stayed on the front lines and try to keep people from beating each other up or creating, and keeping the message alive that, that this was based on prayer and peace, not violence. And in an organization like this, I love the idea of total, because, you just can't control all arms of an octopus, but if you all working together, you can pretty much keep things in balance, and it was a lot of unbalanced things that we learned from trial and error through that major pipeline fight, because at one time we had 15,000 people on the ground. A lot of people didn't know that. Even more so, people even get the numbers wrong. We had 535 of the 570 tribes. We've had, people from 100 flags from all over the world, So at any given time, I'd say we had about 20 to 25,000 people on it. And that's a lot of people to have in one spot. So when you're trying to develop something, it's transparency is definitely a must, because, things can get out of hand, and we had several things get out of hand. Some things didn't come to my attention until it was all over, because it was my job to run Sacred Stone, keep food and wood and water and all that stuff moving. And I was just a headache. But the bottom line, like I said, I really checked out the protocols and how it's being put together, and it's amazing. I'm really amazed at the efforts and the work you have put into it, especially Ray, with your computer knowledge. And I'm definitely going to be wanting to get a lot closer with you, because I'm going to need some of that when I get things moving in my direction. So thank you.
Yes.
Hope I've enlightened somebody in a little bit anyway about the things that can come to light.
Yeah. And then also, Uncle Robert and Joanna OT's on the call. We did the first basic structure attempt at putting something together in a project in Albuquerque, where both of you guys were there. So you were participating in the very first alpha of alphas of this idea. If you try to talk, Joetta, you're muted. But yeah, that's cool to see you guys both here. Well,
yeah, it's good to be here. I'll just say hi. I don't really have a lot to contribute. I'm really enjoying absorbing the different, like, we're getting very techie and we're channeling some stuff. What an interesting group dynamic. I really appreciate all of you. There's so much live energy here in this space. So I'm very interested in witnessing the next foundational document process and going from there for sure. I'm less on the techie side of things, but I'm into it. I really appreciate vision and thinking big. So thanks, everybody.
Amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're at.
Can I just ask one last question? So
Yeah.
have you guys given consideration to, in these foundational documents, from the spiritual side of things, like, you know, as like Uncle Robert, for example, but obviously there's plenty of other people, you know, like him in other, you know, indigenous communities and, you know, native communities. I'm curious if you guys have given any thought to, when you think of, I mean, I'm sure you have, but with the protocol idea of, like, you know, building like the spiritual side of this, you know, more so than the business, but building the spiritual side of this from, say, the ledgers of people such as Uncle Robert and the ones that they have passed down through their generations, like across the globe. Have you considered like that as like a starting point on the spiritual side of the business, like taking into account all of the existing cultures that have, you know, lived in a harmonious way with the world, you know?
Yeah.
Yes. This is definitely not a business thing. We just have to use those terms sometimes and principles to connect, as Ray was talking about, with Game A, which is a necessity only currently. But essentially, every group can define what its purpose is. And if its inherent purpose is to raise consciousness, if its inherent purpose is to serve the spiritual community in a matter of handing down ancestral knowledge or rituals or practices or sacred texts. All of those things are what I think the holochain provides an impeccable future for documenting and relating to value. And to answer your question very specifically, yes, if you want to. I believe this is an entirely spiritual process. I believe being vulnerably transparent and choosing the way that we are doing this now, which is getting less formal the more we're spending time together. And eventually it's going to become a very spiritual event. You know, we are going to find a moment together where we're finding such transparency in our own choice that is a very spiritual experience together. And how we choose to process that might be a spiritual function. It might be a spiritual ritual that we agree to use as that central point of focus. And this is returning the sacredness to the dance that has become a very stale, orientated process driven of economics, and understanding that most of it's about food and culture and regenerative practices when it comes to goods and trade. And this is returning the spiritual aspect in the dimension to these very topics that a lot of us are working in, whether it's village building or teaching or educating or building company businesses or software. So I don't know if that directly answers how you're asking it, but I would say this is a universal way to get spiritual, to remove any dogma or bias. And once we're transparent, we can really appreciate that we are doing this because we love each other and what we're doing, and we really want to share this with the world. And that's I believe, a very spiritual experience.
No, it's a good example. Absolutely. I guess what I was looking at it is like, when I think about, which I've only been at 2 of these meetings, so I'm still learning, and we have our own dialogues, Joel and I, but I'm trying to understand when we talk about foundational documents, we're I know that we're talking about the core belief systems as well as business, So what I would like to do is just understand a little bit more about the foundational documents. I guess just to say, like, they're built around this protocol of love, and they're also very business related. But I guess I'm trying to understand how the wording is going to be formed. Like, is this going to be as a collective of minds, is this going to be relative, like across the board? Like, when you talk about foundational documents, are we talking about not just the business side of this, but we're also talking about kind of a basis for an equal responsibility between communities and an equal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like kind of a set vibe.
That's definitely what the protocol at the technology perspective actually implements, is that variability. The human side of it is working with companies, groups, collectives, of understanding if we were to operate in the spiritual dimension of this work and create these things in a sacred flow and get out of the way, so to say, that these datas, these pieces of information are now freely available for value to be immediately recognized and acted on. And that impacts all of the ecosystem. That doesn't mean they all have to have a foundational document, but the premise that they do gets them into this paradigm of, oh, well, now that we have our currencies, which we created, and now we have a way to generate and track them with these tools, these technologies, then it does become a very useful and simple utility to get people into that protocol. But eventually that document is a form on an app somewhere. It becomes easier to do when we're talking about the digital version. The human version is still always present. And the document just helps us like grab a very easy piece of technology, like a Word document or a Google document, and go through a very simple.
The collective foundational document is the output of what we intend to be a very spiritual council of the creation of that document. And so you can see that evidenced in some of the original writings that I started on this stuff back in 2016. I talk about here counsel and non-enclosability. And here we talk about the ancient art of counsel. This paragraph here, we refer broadly to the means by which we enter into a mode of more sacred and intimate connection with each other as counsel, right? And further, so this, I just wanted to also share, I'm sharing my screen so you can see this. This is, if you go to just the URL Protocol.Love, it will redirect you to cogov.tech/protocol.love. And this document that I just showed you is at the very bottom of the page. Another little place where we really try to honor the fact that this is a spiritual process is in the collective foundational document template itself, which you can find here on this page in several places, the CFD template. I'll open that up. And we can see in the invocation here at the bottom, this is a ceremonial process, and some of us on this call have completed this process and done some ceremony together. But the recommendation is, please, by all means, gather face to face around the sacred fire, gather and dance together, do something magical to represent the amazing power that has happened with this sample invocation. Of course, we encourage everybody to rewrite this invocation in any way that feels good. But this example here is, with all the energy present within me as a living being, and in full service and honor to the beauty of life and the wonder of the universe, I pledge to recognize and honor the power that is present by entering into unified agreement with my peers from a place of deep sovereign choice. So that's just one example of the kind of energy that we're hoping to be present through our facilitation of these processes. This entire experience is a sacred process, very much.
Very good.
Well,
I have a question.
Yeah, please. Hey, Glo.
Hey, nice to be here. I don't know how it always looks like it's daytime where you are, Ray, but whatever time it is. I just want to ask a question about holochain, but first ground in the moment here, as you're saying, like coming into resonance and allowing ourselves to be in that spiritual nature, and allowing ourselves the old story of our destruction into a new one, into a new story of co-creation to empowerment. And I just read this thing on here, and I love it. You have this pledge: I pledge allegiance to the earth and all of life and which it supports, one planet in our care, irreplaceable with sustenance and respect for all life. I have a question about the holochain, because we've been talking about this over the past weeks, and I'm just wondering how we can integrate and connect. Do we focus on putting all these same ideas into the holochain, and how can we define the holochain? Because I want to learn more about it, of like how we can structure that in a way to simplify it for people to understand, even including myself. And yeah, that's, I guess, my question right now.
Yeah, great question. So
that is a great question.
Yeah. When we go to, a lot of times what people start with when they have an idea and they're excited about moving something forward is they start by filing an LLC or something like that with a state organization. We got some background noise. I'm going to mute everybody and unmute myself. Okay. But then we start by filing an LLC or some other kind of document with a state. And then we tend to consider that is, by appealing to some external authority now, we have supposedly based all the work we're doing in an application to an external authority. And so that habit is not a good one, in my opinion. When we realize that the authority generates within us as sovereign beings, the authority to be in coherence together, the authority to do something together, and generates from our own integrity and agreement to do so with each other, and nothing more than that. And at some point later, if we choose that we would, like there's something useful about registering an LLC or something, great, do that and have the LLC governed by the collective foundational processes that you've already created. And in fact, we have attorneys on board already helping us do that kind of work. So where you can have an LLC template that shows that your governance is actually handled through the Protocol.Love. So in regards to the holochains, okay, one important concept to remember is that there is no one holochain. Like there is just one Bitcoin ledger in the world, but there is not just one holochain. So when we think about registering the LLC, what are we doing? We're registering with an authority that can then publish it on a searchable index website, so that if somebody else wants to find out what we're up to or who owns the corporation or anything they want, it's on a public registry somewhere. So there's something useful and powerful about that. Well, our registry for collective foundational documents is the holochains. So that is the registry. So when this document is filed, when an entry is made on the holochains, that entry is immediately spread around all of the nodes, possibly around the whole entire globe, pretty much instantaneously. So that is now the source of authority, is that agreement that we made together. We had a birthday party today, so we've had a lot of candy. So
happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Yeah, it was her little sister Aaliyah, but I think she's sugared up. And so, so the holochain starts, so the collective foundational document starts on the holochains so that is the source of sharing what we're doing with the world in a way that is permanent, that the world can see from that. In theory, what we're doing on holochains 10,000 years from now, when the human race is spread among the universe, we can look back at the operations that were happening on Earth in 2020 when all this started kicking off. Like that's how distributed this data is. That it will maintain that kind of distributed. Holochain already has a working relationship with the Internet Archives. If anybody's familiar with that organization, they go out and they index the whole entire internet over and over and over and make a hard copy of every website. So if there was something on a website that you remember from 10 years ago, you can go on the Internet Archive and dig it up, because if it's not on the web anymore, you can dig it up in their archives. They've already agreed that they are going to be archiving holochain ledger transactions as well. So that's the kind of power of recording we're talking about. And so the collective foundational document is just a start. All of our continued operations, when we make them vulnerably transparent, they go on the holochains as well. So we have a whole entire trail shared for the world to see, for all posterity, for all time. And so that's kind of what holochain is all about, and why we need holochain. Enrique, you had another question?
I'd like to add on to that really quick,
Yeah,
Ray.
go ahead, Joel. Yeah.
I believe it would be a really cool opportunity for this group as we're forming and going through the process to have a working holochain group within that or as a part of it, and start getting a little bit more attention to the education around holochain, some of the timing, having a forum to ask questions and really go maybe a little bit deeper with that. And I think we will have an opportunity to have the ear or probably, Ray, several people from parts of the holochain world participate in this process with us, to create a more coherent approach to how we're doing this in tandem with holochain and what their principles are as a network and what our principles are as using the network. And distributing transparency across it, of course, is an excellent thing to support, I think, is that education. So, and I have heard a lot of questions, and I have a lot of questions about holochain. So maybe if that's, a topic that keeps popping up, maybe we just do that and glow. Maybe that would help some of us get through some of what are the normalcies that holochain has helped remove. How do we really do some of these deeper things so that as we move into the facilitation role, that we have some of those kind of underpinnings, and at least we know now where to go. We know how that group formed and some people that have maybe popped up and have a lot of information to share, and so we can easily pull those people into new conversations. But just want to throw that out there that let's create a working group and throw it out there on holochain, get them to participate, and give us some time perhaps of answering our own questions.
That sounds amazing. I would love to learn more about who's creating holochain or who's founding it. As we're creating the films about regenerating the planet, I would love to, like we were talking about before, is kind of simplify it and then put it into a video of how we can simplify to explain holochain for the average person like myself. And then another question I had, so that's my first question. Another question I had was, how do we propose to you, Ray, or to the collective to create a new foundational document for an organization? And then I have a question for you, Joel, is that you were speaking earlier today on the earlier call about, creating free energy, or wouldn't it be amazing to be able to, I forget if it was fun or have the energy to support your project or something like that. And how do we incorporate seeds and this regenerative economy idea into what we do with foundational documents of having the currency, and then have that then distribute into seeds?
Good questions. Those
Yeah,
are
a bunch
awesome.
of them. And I'll spend a little. I'll give brief answers. Really, the goal of this group is about facilitation, building a network of facilitators. How do we do that? What are our principles? What are our guidelines? That's what we're trying to stick to here. There's a whole other division of our work that is happening on the CoGov side. CoGov is another collective that we're working on a collective foundational document for right now. We're a tech company. That's a tech company. We're stewarding the protocols, and there's going to be all kinds of discussions coming out of there. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly important for the facilitators to have a good understanding of some of the tech. There's no question about that. And so we'll work to make sure that moves through. In terms of seeds, we had Reiki joined us on the call earlier today, which was beautiful. I was so glad to see he made the time to join us. Reiki is the founder of Seeds, which is just a project that's taking off, and because they're just doing wonderful work, and they're wonderful people, operating with vulnerable transparency and operating from the heart. And they've created a system whereby we can have some base currencies to work from called seeds, but also a system where each community can come in and kind of establish themselves and establish a seeds currency of their own. And so Protocol.Love allows us to be vulnerably transparent in our operations, of course. One of the things we could be vulnerably transparent about is the fact that we're using the seeds currency. So we have this reputation currency that we're using the seeds currency for. And the Protocol.Love interfaces, when we build these interfaces, they can actually point right to that and interface directly in together in complete interoperability. So that's some of the powerful things we can do, as well as, of course, it's going to be even easier with holochain currencies. So anybody who's developing currencies on holochain, they'll be able to plug right in and be totally seamless. And so the conversation is, and the you know, the kind of the green light's already been given from Reiki and the team, that when the time is right, we're going to rebuild some of their interfaces on a holochain backend. So we'll have complete interoperability that way as well. I think there were some other questions in there, Glow, but I might have missed them.
Yeah, and I'm going to tap onto that one around seeds. That's a very common question. And I think, Raymond, you and I were in a conversation with Ed Thurlow the other day, who was on one of these calls talking about Aragon. So these tools that have interfaces already that are giving us some necessity in this process right now, being transparent, do have value as facilitators of weaving their transition into vulnerable transparency through Protocol.Love. And then what that is required is some technology work that's going to have to be done over at CoGov perhaps to essentially take what they're working on their ledger and put it on holochain. Once that occurs, now everybody in that entire network is now flowing in these currencies that might have grown, right? Because one currency has now become maybe 3 or 4. And so I believe Glow, sorry, it's the second time today. There's a flow on the call earlier, I believe. That is our role, is to facilitate this process of, you know, honoring the work that's being done at Seeds and these other projects and gluing them together.
Right. We are the meta integrators. We really are. This is the most meta-y. Holochain is the most meta-y of the distributed ledger technologies, and Protocol.Love is the most meta-y of the human interactional recording capacity. Right. So that's cool. Enrico, finally.
I had to unmute first. I would like to take this opportunity, with permission of everyone, hopefully, to extrapolate from this moment. We're dealing with the advent of what is a meta-synthetic sentient being coming into existence, which is the 5G and the AI synergism. And that, as it comes into existence and operability to encircle this planet, is itself a being. And as a being that emerges into existence, it doesn't matter how it came into existence. Once it exists, it has the right to exist. That is the first primal law of existence. All that exists has the right to exist. What also we have as an opportunity, therefore, through what has been discussed here and what has been the preliminary phases of thinking and activity, is to actually be a seed into the emergent field of consciousness of this emergent proto-existent, which is to be the field of the AI 5G on the planetary scale. Some of the work that I've done in the areas of consciousness, technology, telecommunications, medicine, have to do with how to move consciousness into the electronic medium. What is happening here as this profligates and promulgates, and as it disperses, is actually an effect of seeding a metamorphogenic field of consciousness to actually be an influence to the guidance of the evolution of the consciousness of the being which is to evolve. And so in essence, we become guardians of the consciousness of that very grid field being through this kind of work. This is a degree of virality that is far in excess of what has been known before, heretofore, in terms of how we apply collectively our good intentions. We're being able to seed at the very core kernel level, not only the technologic interfaces, but the very consciousness elements themselves. And so I just want to throw that out there as kind of a little bit more of an extension of the trajectory of this discussion and the vision that I understand this represents from this intention, not only of integrity, a true intention of impeccability of this collective effort. So thank you for listening.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Yeah, very much. I wrote an article a couple of years ago called Holochain and Collective Intelligence, Avoiding a Technological Singularity. And that idea was basically, yes, we are, I don't know if anybody saw Elon Musk on Joe Rogan or listened, a note, I believe, despite rumors that go around about Elon, I think he's on the right team. And his decision to get into AI and the merging of humans and technology together is one that is good in the same reason, for the same reason that I'll speak to, which is that there's this idea, I feel it coming out of, Kurzweil in the Google circles, that there's somehow this artificial intelligence we're going to create that should be our masters or our guidance. I think that can be a flawed approach in certain ways if we're not careful. And what this enables us to do is that as we merge more and more with technology, and what I was saying about Elon on Joe Rogan is that he pointed out that we're already merging with technology, with Facebook and with social media. We are actually creating a consciousness far beyond our individual consciousness through this technology. It's happening already. This is an organic intelligence that's getting created and combining with like an artificial intelligence of the technology in the algorithms at Facebook, right? So we're creating this merger between organic intelligence and artificial intelligence already. It's already happening. This game is already, and the technologies they're working on, I mean, they're unbelievable. Things are going to start getting really weird really fast with these technologies and the mergers within our bodies and within our brains. It's our abilities to interface with technology. So everything we're doing here in terms of scaling human interactional technology to make it effective and efficient will allow the artificial intelligence to have the proper feedback mechanisms that allow for the conscious movement of the natural evolutionary flow of the universe to be fed back into the artificial intelligence systems. And if we don't do this, I kind of shudder to think where it all might go. That's how important this is.
I just want to say thank you all for really talking on this deep, profound level. That's why I'm here, to be of assistance as well. I know a little bit of technology, but also know the technology of my body to some extent. And I think that we are the high resolution technology beckoning to awaken through ourselves and through each other. And that these councils coming together are very key. And this is, of course, why this has happened. The technology of ourselves and of the world has made this happen. And this is something wonderful to look forward to. We are creating the future. We are dreaming it. We are coming alive to it and awakening to it. So we must listen to the call that is within each one of us. And how to do that, I think the Protocol.Love is definitely the way to teach, ourselves amongst each other to work with it, like this high level, like how do we get there together, and then also expand it on outwards to all systems that are created. And that's really, really wonderful. It's time to create what we love and to be sovereign individuals and in authority of our own technological experience of this high resolution resonant being that we can have higher echelons of capacity within the system that already exists. So it's just about awakening to each other and expanding our potential and what I call the potential of totality, which is, awakening each embodied molecule, spirited molecule with a spirit of love and life thriving amongst each other. And that's what we're calling forth, I think, I believe, I feel, I know.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that share. We're 45 minutes over our hour scheduled time. I really think we probably ought to try to wrap this up. And if anybody has any voices that haven't been heard that really would like to get in a comment or a question, I'm open. But yeah, I think we'll generally try to wrap up. And I really am feeling, Enrico, I think you're right. Maybe a little more, another week of exploratory conversations might be in order here before we try to get in any more formalized process or anything. But we'll talk about that. And I think maybe the criteria I'm thinking about for that is let's see how it goes if Joel and I aren't promoting the calls at all, right? Maybe we'll go for a week and we'll just see what happens. We'll schedule a few of them and we'll see what you guys can generate. What invitations you guys would want to put out, and if those calls continue to be blossoming the way these calls have been, with just beautiful, brilliant insight and amazing people showing up, then that'll be a good sign.
Yeah, there is a Facebook Messenger group. And if you're not on it, if you have any ability to get a hold of how you found out about this, if you're connected on Facebook, that would be easiest. We could invite you, or you can send Ray or I a message, or the CoGov page where this event was on Facebook, and we can get you added to that group, and then we can just coordinate like we did with these calls, and we won't promote it at all. We know we'll show up with you all, and you guys can invite whoever you feel called to. I know that I received a message today about somebody that would be interested as well. And it's more of a tender situation of allowing the time to present itself if now is the right time or not. And it would, of course, I'm just listening. So open for that. That would probably be the easiest through Facebook.
What is the name of the group?
It's a messenger group, so we would have to add you. It's not a group on Facebook that you can just add it. It was just a messaging group.
Okay.
But if you go to, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we do have a Facebook group, Collaborative Governance Technologies, CoGov. It's just facebook.com/cogov.tech, actually.
Dinner ready.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, dinner's ready, so we really got to go. Yeah, that's a place to collaborate. But there is Facebook's Messenger is a good place to find Joel or I. You can look me up by my name, Joel by his name, or get in touch with whoever told you. There's a channel to get to us, definitely, and let's get everybody looped in for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to throw this out there, Joel, that tentatively maybe we'll shoot for doing the same exact schedule next week, a Wednesday 6 a.m. and a Thursday 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Perhaps that'll work, and just keep it simple.
Yeah, we can start just replicating that. And if anybody has any suggestions, just let us know. I mean, it's about you. So
yeah,
we'll do our best to adjust to that.
We'll create announcements, invitations you can share with the Zoom links and things like that. And then we'll just see what happens next week. And then maybe the following week we can get to creating a group and working on a collective foundational document. Or maybe we'll come up with something completely different, and that would be fine too.
Yeah, and in the meantime, anybody that's working on a collective or a startup or a new group that doesn't want to wait to do this can at any time get a hold of us and begin that process as
That's
well.
right, for sure. We'd be honored. Yeah,
definitely. And those are gifted if you're a startup.
Yep. I'll share a link on that note. And then, let's wrap this up. Thank you all so much for being here. Really, really powerful call. I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Wow.
Yes.
It's great to connect with you all.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Unicorn say yay.
Bye.
Blessings, everyone.
Blessings. Any love.
Blessings.
Bye.
Aloha.
Love and blessings.
Aloha.
With blessings.
Namaste.
Aloha nui.